Yesterday, Yacht Club Games announced their first brand new IP since Shovel Knight, Mina the Hollower. It's got a Kickstarter going on right now, and I am so excited to announce that I actually got the chance to play an early exclusive demo of it. And being a huge fan of Shovel Knight, I just jumped out of my seat for the chance to do this. So let's talk about it, because this demo is incredible. One of the things I really like about Yacht Club Games, and about Shovel Knight in particular, is that it does a really excellent job of taking something that feels like a familiar retro formula, but adding their own spins to it, elevating it, adding some quality of life, influences from other later generation games, and turning it into something new and much more unique. And Mina the Hollower is taking this to a whole other level, to be honest. When you look at the game, certain influences are very obvious, right? A lot of people are immediately drawing the comparisons of it being like a Game Boy Zelda game, like Link's Awakening or the Oracle games. There's also references to Castlevania, with the main character using a whip, and in fact, in the demo, there's also things like breakable walls that you can hit to unlock different secrets and find things, so that's very much in the kind of Castlevania vibe as well. The one influence, though, that I think isn't getting talked about enough, because honestly it didn't make that much sense to me at first, is Bloodborne. They actually say this directly in the Kickstarter as being one of the games that influenced it, and reading that, I was kind of like, okay, sure, I mean, that makes sense, I guess, and it didn't fully make sense to me. And once I started playing the demo, it clicked really well. Game Boy Color style Zelda is certainly the main influence as far as the sort of, I guess you could say, the core bones of the game. You know, it's a top-down, it's Game Boy style visuals, right down to, I think, actually the size of the pixels, although there are more of them compared to regular, because this game is, of course, in 16:9 as opposed to the old 10:9 Game Boy aspect ratio. But at first glance, the influence is pretty obvious. Again, top-down, action game. The way you jump is the same that Link would jump when using the rock feather, but there are of course also its own unique spins on the core gameplay. For instance, your ability to burrow, which is very important to the game. This is used not only for being able to do things like solve certain puzzles or get through certain platforming challenges, but is also really handy when going up against certain enemies, because burrowing is a lot faster than regular movement. So to dodge enemy attacks, to get around them, to get yourself in an advantageous position, it ends up being used a lot. Where Bloodborne comes into all of this, though, is not necessarily the core mechanics of the game, though some of them are certainly inspired by it as well, but almost more the flow of where the gameplay and story goes. As far as mechanics influence goes, this does have a slightly Soulsborne style mechanic where it comes to experience and currency. Basically, when you defeat certain enemies or find items, they are bones that are used to either level up your abilities, increasing how much damage you do, taking less damage, so on and so forth, but also can be used as currency at shops to buy things like a key to unlock a door. As a bit of a spin on the Soulsborne mechanic, when you die, you don't lose the stuff you have on hand. Instead, you lose this item that is basically a replaceable orb you can get by, again, backtracking to where you were and defeating the enemy that killed you, or just getting to where you died because you fell off a platform. If you don't successfully get back and reclaim this orb and die, then you just straight up lose all the bones you've amassed, thus losing your currency. So it's similar in some ways, but changes it up a little bit more to where you still have the stuff on hand to keep, but there is that very real fear of losing it if you die multiple times very quickly. Something that calls back to specifically Bloodborne and not really Souls games in general is also a sort of offensive-friendly mechanic for how you heal. One of the big things in Bloodborne was whenever you lost health, you always had a segment of it that was recoverable, and if you hit an enemy, you would get it back, so it favored a very aggressive playstyle. Mina has a bit of a remix on this concept where basically you have this healing item you can drink, and how much it heals you is based on how many times you've been successfully hitting enemies and damaging them. A little bit of a remix, but the influence here is very obvious. This, combined with the Castlevania influences like breakable walls and sub-weapons that you can use, really opens up a lot more complexity in this game that I think some people are going to give it credit for based on just the gameplay trailers. Even the sub-weapons are surprisingly complex. One of them is a throwing knife that kind of acts like a boomerang, but what's interesting about it is when it's coming back, instead of you catching it, if you hit it with your whip, it goes flying back at the enemy again. So if you time it right and you can hold your position, you can dish out a lot of damage. And then something else that feels very Bloodborne inspired, and I'm very curious to see how it's actually actualized in the full version of the game, is NPCs and sort of like subplot storytelling. The game isn't necessarily as dark or as ominous as Soulsborne games tend to be, but the things that NPCs say when you talk to them, the little bits of things that you can read, all do have a little bit of that ominous air to them. And there's actually small subplots you can complete in the demo. For instance, finding a character and talking to them, and repeatedly finding them across the demo, leading ultimately to a boss fight that gets you a special item. Or in another case, unlocking a door that you could not open otherwise, giving you a bunch of rewards that are hidden within. The game also has some very light RPG elements in the form of trinkets. These are basically different accessories you can equip that give you different bonuses. Some of them are very simple, just kind of passive benefits like, oh, your attack is higher, oh, you can stay burrowed a little longer, while others mix up the gameplay a little more, like reducing how much you get staggered when you get hit by an enemy. You can equip 2 of these at a time, at least within the demo, and there was a number of different ways to find them. Some of them were as simple as completing a small little quest given by an NPC. Some of them were found in hidden rooms. One of them was purchasable from a merchant. The demo actually tells you how many trinkets there are total in it once you've beaten how many you found. I was able to actually get all 10 out of 10, so I think I've basically 100%ed what is available in this demo, and I loved every moment of it. Now, to clarify, it's my understanding that this demo is a snippet from the early midpoint of the game. It is probably also adjusted to account for the fact that this is an early demo. The very opening part of it, in fact, feels a little disconnected and is very kind of opening tutorial area. Very much kind of like how Shovel Knight was, where it doesn't directly tell you how everything works, but it puts you in situations where you figure it out, like, oh, hey, there's a locked door that I need to open, and I'm stuck in this room. There's nothing else I can interact with. I wonder if I hit the walls. Oh, there we go. There's the key hidden back there. Very intuitive opening design, especially given the fact that I actually didn't realize there was a small instruction manual that was sent for me to read over to learn how to play, and I just disregarded that entirely because I jumped in right away. But just playing the game, I did figure out and learn how all these different systems worked. So I think that's something worth really pointing out. As I mentioned at the top of this video, I was a really big fan of Shovel Knight. I really like this very specific approach to sort of balancing old and new gameplay design, and Mina looks to be another really great example of this. The demo is only about 30 minutes long, so obviously there is much more content that will be in the final version of the game, and I'm sure a lot of what I played is also subject to change. The game is currently having a Kickstarter that, as of right now, me recording this video, has already met its goal in less than 24 hours. I think it happened in something like 8, and I don't think there's currently any stretch goals announced, but by the time this video is live, or maybe, you know, in the next couple days, they'll announce some if people are interested in helping it even along further. I have that linked down below in the video description. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, give me a thumbs down so I'm aware. Just because you guys don't see the like ratio, I still can, so I get to see it. Thank you so much again to Yacht Club Games for providing me with this early access demo to give the game a try. Honestly, I've been really thinking about doing a lot more game-focused content like this, and that's part of the reason why when this opportunity came up to play this demo, I just got super excited and wanted to turn something out right away after playing it. So please, if you enjoyed this, let me know, share it to others so they can check it out, and I will see you guys later.